Hello and welcome to Mostly Vintage Cameras. This is a Canon Motor Drive MA. It was launched in 1978 alongside the groundbreaking Canon A-1, which is widely regarded as being something of a modern classic in the 35mm SLR world. Now the Motor Drive MA works with both the A1, with which it was launched, and the later Canon AE1 program. It is not recommended for use with other cameras, not even other A-series cameras, just those two. So anyway, let's take a look at it, see what the composite parts are. It basically comes in three parts. So if you push this little stud here and slide this lever that says lock, this bit comes away. This is basically the bit that bolts the camera. You can see there's a thread there, and it houses the motor, the main shutter button, and all the electronics, or the primary electronics. Quite a compact unit for having all of that in there. This, as you can see, is the battery pack MA, and there's a little slider control here. We slide it down, all across, and battery holder comes out. Canon battery magazine MA. Take note, no Ni-Cad batteries. Do not use Ni-Cad batteries in here. There was a special Ni-Cad battery pack for it, which was a Canon product, but it wasn't just a battery holder with Ni-Cad AA batteries in. So this is intended to run on 12 alkaline AA cells. That's 12 of them. Now I have some here. So let's go ahead and put the batteries in the holder. And you can see there's a single height section here for 4, and then there's a double stack on the other side for the other 8. So while I'm putting these batteries in, trying to make sure I get them the right way, let's think back to the late 70s, early 80s, and quite frankly this was the coolest camera accessory you could get. It was fairly expensive, although I don't recall exactly how much it cost at that time, but it was pricey, and also for most people not really necessary. But at that time there was quite the fashion for emulating sports and press photographers, and so having a motor drive was something of a status symbol for some people. Of course there are people for whom it was, oops, got that wrong, a useful tool, not just a fashion accessory, sports and wildlife photographers in particular, of course. And it wasn't just the Canon Motor Drive that was quite sought after. Ultra and Nikon did similar products for their mid-range cameras, the X series and FM2, FE2 type cameras. And I think I'm right in saying there was a motor drive for the Pentax LX, but the LX was a bit of a specialist camera, or special case I should say. There we go. Oop. There was also a cheaper Winder A, and later on there was a Winder A2. The Winder A would wind on one frame at a time, and the Winder A2 did do continuous winding, but only at about 2 frames a second. Now in terms of speed, okay, that's all together, and we can see we've got this groove here, and a key just here. We can't put this in the wrong way. So that's our battery pack installed. In terms of speed on an A1, now what we need to do here, sorry to interrupt, just press that little button, the lock will go over, and now that's all back together as one piece. On an A1 this will do up to 5 frames a second, and on an AE1 program it will do up to 4 frames a second. So let's go ahead and see how it fits onto a camera. Here's my AE1 program, and the first thing we need to do is remove this, oops, it's pretty loose anyway, finger grip. Now on the base plate of the camera, and this is the same for the A1, is this cover, which looks a little bit like a battery cover from many other cameras, but is actually hiding the gearing or the gear interface for the motor drive. So let's take that out. Very important that we do remove that, and we reveal some mechanical parts. So to attach the motor drive, we again need to remove the top part from the battery pack. Just going to pull that little, come here, thumb tag up. Pretty obvious how this goes on. Really struggling with that thumb tag. For most people that had one of these, once it was on the camera, it stayed on there full time. There was no real reason to take it off. You didn't need to remove it to load or unload a film for any other reason really. So that's the motor drive on the camera. Let's put that on the battery pack. Remember to press the little stud, slide the lock over, and now we're ready to go. So the controls, such as they are on the base here, and you can see we've got an off switch. I can lift and twist and move that over to single. And on the top plate there's a 2-position switch here. L is for lock or off, and S is for, or A is for activated. So when I press the button, it will take one picture and wind on. And it winds on as I release the shutter button. On the side there's a second identical switch, which gives us, can't really see this on the camera, a vertical shutter button or grip. On the base plate, we'll come back to single winding in a moment, but for the moment, let's just go over to low speed continuous. And you see this will now wind on without my taking the finger off the button. And finally on this dial we have high speed continuous. And also if you use the shutter button on the camera, it will also fire and wind on. Now going back briefly to single frame winding, you'll see there's a little switch here, which also has a little on-off slider, and your little finger can rest on that, and it's very hard to hold this in such a way that you can see it, so I'll do it this way around. So we've currently got a single winding, press and release, but if I hold that switch in, it goes to high speed winding. So if you're in single shot winding, but an action scene happens in front of you or unfolds before your very eyes, you can choose to take a sequence just by holding that little white switch in. Always assuming, of course, you remember to flick the lock over to stop you doing it accidentally. And those are pretty much all the controls on the camera, or on the motor drive I should say. There is one remaining, which is this little lever here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to burst through to the end of the film on this. I'm going to do it this way around. I'm going to put this in high speed winding. There we go. This is how people want to use it, of course. And you see it made an awful noise, and this little red light came on that's warning you that you've ran out of film. It will shut off and not try and continue to wind on at the end of a roll of film, so there's no danger of tearing the film up. So all we need to do is push the little centre button here and slide this up, and that will force a pin into the rewind release crank, and then we can rewind in the normal way. Just try to be a little bit careful because I want to try and keep the leader exposed. There we go. So loading a film with the motor drive is much like loading the film without the motor drive, only louder. So we put the film leader in one of the take-up slots, pull it over to the film chamber or film cassette chamber, fire off the first frame, closed back. I like to take up the tension in the film cassette, there we go, and then two more. And you're done. There is one last tiny little thing, it's a dust cap just here, which reveals a little socket, and there was a cable clicky button that could be plugged into there to give you a remote release, and I think there might have been, although I might be mistaken, an infrared version if there wasn't a Canon one. I'm pretty certain there was a third party one made at some point, and people did use these for other things as well. I've seen one or two people that have made very cleverly, in a DIY sense, sort of an infrared trigger, so if something breaks the infrared beam it'll fire the camera. So kind of a 1970s 1980s technology wildlife cam or trail cam. But anyway, that has been the Canon Motor Drive MA. I hope somebody's found this of interest or use. It's one of those fun products that come along from time to time. I should point out they do cost quite a lot of money even today. They typically sell for between £150 and £200. I was very fortunate to pick one up for quite a lot less than that. But as I say, it's one of those gadgets that is lovely to have, but not always necessary. Anyway, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Have a good day.